Here we go. I'm Christine McKellar. I'm here with Jeff Burbank, and we're having another fabulous podcast. We're dealing with issues that baby boomers have had to deal with over the past, 70 decades from baby boomer to now. Last week we talked
from
about,
46 to now.
correct. Last week we talked about sex, and there were statistics that younger people are having less sex, they're not getting married, but we pretty well covered that. Although there were some dangling participles.
And we could
But
always bring up some more
we
points
can do
from
that again at some other day. But today, what we wanted to talk about, and this brought to mind a piece I did. I had a text and attitude column with Las Vegas Women magazine for several years. That was some time ago. But I got all onto this tattoo thing because everywhere I went, now everybody has a tattoo except me and except
and
you.
myself.
Yeah,
Yes.
and none of my kids, stepkids, the immediate family have tattoos. My sister didn't want one. Personally, I'm going to say just off the cuff, for me, it was more like a fashion thing because I would go absolutely stark raving mad if I put on an outfit and it clashed with my tattoo. You can't get rid of the tattoo. So back to that piece I wrote, and basically it was part of the title was "What Lies Beneath." So, what drives people to get tattoos? We can talk about that later. Right now, I just thought I'd give us a little historical background on tattoos. That basically, in about the 1600s, it was common with mariners, sailors. The sailors at sea, they'd be bored. It was interesting. I thought that they would take soot or gunpowder. You know, they're at sea for days. There's nothing to do. All the sails are mended and the decks are swabbed, and they were bored. And they would take the only things they had. They didn't have ink then, so they used gunpowder and soot. Interesting. Well, that more from the 16th century to more about what was it, like 18th, 19th in the naval services. What they started to do, they would use a tattoo either to commemorate someone they loved, like they'd have mom, remember the mom and the heart, or their wife or girlfriend's name. Or like one of my brothers, may he rest in peace, he was with the 101st Airborne, so he had their logo. So it was like a camaraderie thing among the military and the armed services. So it was a salute, an emblem to bravery and freedom. And that seemed to last like through the 50s. I say that because my older brother had a tattoo. 50s and 60s, we would see bikers, Hell's Angels with tattoos. But we didn't see the glut of tattoos on all the bodies that we see today. And the statistic, the last I checked, 47%. That's like you mentioned earlier. That's a lot. That's almost 50%. 47% of adults 18 to 34 have at least one tattoo. And there was another percentage where they have multiple tattoos. So I don't know. It just, I personally, when I was researching my previous article, to me, tattoos are tribal, most of them, you know, and we're going to talk about you had an experience with scarification and branding when you were in San Francisco, right? But so traditionally, Maori warriors have these beautiful tattoos, they're symbols. But I have seen white male construction workers with Maori tattoos. And I think you haven't earned that tattoo. You should, if you want to do a dragon or something, or they'll use the Japanese katana symbols. But and then the earplug thing drives me nuts. You know, they call them gauges, where the big holes in your ears. It's a personal decision. I get it. But Burmese women, that was a tribal thing for them. And they also were the women who did the neck extensions with all the rings. So it was kind of annoying me to see all these construction workers with these symbols that I knew to be tribal. And again, when it's on the neck and the sleeves, I just think it gets to be a bit extreme. And it also bothers me when I'm in the grocery store and I see this overweight woman who doesn't take care of herself, okay? I mean, her hair's not done. She has no makeup on. She's pushing a grocery cart full of sugar and cookies, and she's got 3 skinny little malnourished kids, right? Paying at the check stand with her, what do you call those cards they have now? It's similar to what we used to call food stamps. And then I'm looking at her, and she's got thousands of dollars worth of ink all over her body. And I'm like, why? How can you afford to get all those tattoos, but yet you're buying all this junk food on the government for your kids? So Anyway, I'm going to throw the tattoo ball at you. I was
Well,
curious about your experience.
all right. First of all, tattoos, body modification go back hundreds of years to
True,
tribal uh, tribal groups and
of
that kind of
course.
thing. And I think really though, since about the 20th century, it's really gone down. But in general, let's say before,
You mean among the tribes
well,
or
yeah, among
in?
the tribes. But then it's sort of, I mean, in the maybe the Western culture, it kind of bounced back about 20 years ago or
Yeah, I would
25
say.
years ago.
Yeah,
And it was called body modification, and then all sorts of different body modifications. Now,
right.
first of all, I don't want to judge people with tattoos. I never chose to have one. I
Yeah, I
always
don't
thought
mean to
they were
judge them either,
right,
but
right, right.
but
I always thought they were on the vulgar, low class side,
back in the
but
day.
then they came out to be fashionable. About 15, 20 years
And the
ago.
art became much better.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. The artists were better, right?
some of them are quite accomplished, actually.
Sure,
The
sure,
tattoo artists, yeah.
sure. And that is part of it. That
Mhm.
has improved a lot. But I wouldn't have one. I actually I thought about this a lot. I don't really find it necessarily attractive on a woman. I'm a
Okay.
straight guy.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see it as attractive on a woman. I think it's distracting. It doesn't do
Okay.
much for me. For some guys, maybe they like that,
I'm sure
and
it's a big turn on to some guys.
sure,
Yeah.
and some women assume that, but I don't find it particularly attractive. Now, would it repel me necessarily from a woman who has one or two or something like that? Maybe not, but of course, uh, uh, what also I don't like is the excessive
You mean like the sleeves and
tattooing,
stuff?
the throat, and the
The nape of the neck. I think that would be the nape would be so painful.
right, right.
But I think too, and I guess because I've gotten older along the same line, my sister brought it up. She said, "Look at that young girl. Her skin is so beautiful. Why did she
Hmm.
put all that ink on it?"
Hmm.
And we could even, we're
That,
not going to go
that's
through,
a good point. It
yeah.
it really
And
can
then
sully a woman's
a
beautiful skin.
beautiful, yeah. And then what happens when you grow up or grow out or grow older and that perky little is now sagging down to here?
Hmm.
And we could get into this later, but there are a lot of people who have second thoughts about their tattoos, or it's the
Hmm.
name of somebody that's long gone and now they're on
Hmm.
to somebody else. And there are some funny stories about what they do if they can't afford. It's very expensive to remove a tattoo
Hmm.
and it's painful, but how what they'll do to cover up that name, of their one significant other, you know. But here, this brings me to an interesting thing. uh, okay, removing a tattoo is one thing, but you have a scarification. We all know what
Hmm.
that is, and the branding.
Hmm.
I don't know. I do believe those are not undoable.
Hmm.
Maybe a branding. I
Now,
don't
well,
know.
okay, so branding is almost unrecoverable. You've got the brand, and
It's all the epidermis of the
you
skin.
you
Yeah,
can lighten it, but it's always going to be there. So if you have put a pentagram or something like that,
right.
you're gonna have that on you, and so that's one thing. And then the scarification, where you actually create a scar.
It's a
I mean,
keloid scar, right?
right,
Hmm.
and then
Ugh,
right, the skin, and that can get those what bumps there from that,
sure. Yeah, I have one
and it
actually.
causes problems. It
Hmm.
can cause problems. But I went to San Francisco with some friends. God, it must have been 20 plus years ago, and there was a shop where they advertised this. That was not only tattoos but body modifications, including scarification, which I had never heard of,
Interesting.
and branding. All right, but I mean, the thing is, scars are something you're supposed to
Earn.
avoid,
No, or
but
you've earned them. There was a
avoid. I mean,
story, fell out of the tree when I was little, and whatever.
right.
Right,
You want to get rid of it. Al Capone had that scar on his face, and
right.
he could never get it off, and he put white makeup on there to try to cover
And
it up, but
yeah,
it couldn't do it. But I had Mohs surgery a couple of times, and that is where they go in to get skin cancer out,
yeah.
layer by layer. All right, I went to a specialist because I had cancerous tumors in my my nose here,
Oh,
and I had this specialist in Palo Alto, California, who was really good at it, and he would slice open your nostril like this and cut up here, take out the cancer, and then suture it back, and there'd be no scar. It's just remarkable. He said, "Yeah, I've done hundreds of these," and it had all these awards on his.
they suture from the inside somehow, or I don't.
They do it layer by layer, but he was able to do it without a scar, which I was
God
surprised at.
bless
I,
them.
I looked like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, and then he gets his nose sliced up, and
Yeah.
then there's all those sutures. And I was thinking, well, let's see what happens. He said there'll be no scar, and there was just no scar.
Well, there's no scar because I'm sitting right here looking at
Right,
you
right, right. So
directly.
I was amazed that that kind of invasion would not leave a scar. So, I mean, a scar is something to be avoided. Now,
One would think.
I would think, I guess, scarification is for display purposes, or maybe maybe people might think it's sexy, to have a scar in their
That
chest
must
or
be a
something like that.
small clique.
Yeah, yeah.
That
I don't know why that would
small
be that way,
society.
but I and it's funny too because
And the branding.
okay, the branding,
I have a story.
you put a symbol on you,
Mhm.
and that goes back to times when human slaves were branded to show their owners, and of course
Awful.
animals have been branded,
Yes.
and because it's a permanent
Okay,
thing.
and I stepped into it because of Yellowstone. I had never watched it. I tried to watch Yellowstone, okay? Years ago when it came out. Well, I'm sorry, the first two episodes bored me to tears. I just couldn't get
I
past.
didn't get into it, frankly.
Okay, so I was not that engrossed. Whereas again, family members, close friends, have you watched the latest? So when the episode came up where it turned out they were branding their uh, ranch hands, the
Oh,
men
oh.
were getting the Yellowstone brand. Well, I was so appalled, and I went off on Facebook about it. But it was surprising how many people defended that.
Well, you know what? That brings up boy, I cannot remember the name of it, but there was that cult that was going on in California.
Oh,
Uh,
there were so many. No
and
wonder you can't remember.
it was that one guy. He was sort of the guru, and he was always lecturing people about keeping your head straight or whatever. And he'd have these people who would spend a lot of money, and then they would get moved up on. It was a Ponzi kind of thing, but he these women that kind of worshipped him, he made them get tattoos. Well, actually, I don't know if it was scarification, but it turned out to have a brand with his initials, and they didn't know
Yes.
it. And that whole case came out
Right.
several years ago. He got sent to
Okay.
prison, and
Right. It's ringing a bell, but
other
it's
people
not
were sent to
right.
prison. I probably should have looked that up earlier,
That's quite right.
but
But
that sounds
I
kind of
do
like
remember that. I
what
think there was a documentary or something on
Yes, there
Netflix.
was.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was.
right.
People are gullible, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
that doesn't explain the 47% of adults out there
Yeah,
who
I
have
just
a
can't
cat.
believe it's almost half of the people in that age
Yes,
group.
I pulled it off of the AI on Google, so AI doesn't lie. But
Okay.
so you were with friends and you saw a shop. Did you go in?
Yeah, we just looked in for a few minutes, and it was mostly people in the back, and then they had pictures of what they could do. But actually I was a little more intrigued by the store next door to it, which was about you. It was all about buying bones, that had human and animal bones and skulls and
What
teeth that
for?
you could buy just as for decoration. And I
You
said, where do you get the
human?
human? Yeah, yeah, they had
Oh,
skeletons, they
okay.
had skulls.
Where did they get
And
them?
he said India and China, they would get them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
They rob graves for those?
no, I think they had dealers, actually. People
But
died, and
I wonder where they get the bones. They must
that's a good
buy them
question.
from a coroner.
But I mean, that's San Francisco. I used to live there. God bless that place. That's just has a lot of. It's
Everything.
always on the cutting edge of
Right.
things. I mean, from that to restaurants
Right.
to
Right. Yeah.
theater and music and
Must be
that
the
kind of thing.
latitude and the longitude. That before I forget, there is a funny thing, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but for those who don't know, I'm a novelist, and I've written 3 novels published. The sailing series is because I used to sail years ago before that stupid Below Deck. I hated that show. I don't know if you ever saw it. They're on a luxury yacht, and all they do is have sex and drink and party, which you can't do when you're running a boat. But so I decided people begged me to write about my my experiences, been on a hurricane, and said, wait. So I decided to fictionalize it. And I'm getting to my point. So, as you know, as a writer, and you are nonfiction, but you follow the same processes, So my characters can run away with the plot. So I have a very sexy Jamaican, Noah, and my character, Quinn, is going off sailing with him and three other guys she never knew. She's delivering a boat from Miami to Jamaica. Noah's very superstitious. She doesn't know that he has a Puerto Rican gorgeous chick named Lydia that he dumped, and she's narcissistic, and she's out for revenge to Lydia to get Noah back. And before he even met Quinn, he was on another crossing with a friend of his, and they had Lydia. She was the cook on that crossing, which is how they met. Make a long story short, they're having sex everywhere. It's disrupting the delivery of the yacht. He finally tells her, cool it. She can't stand it. She's out for revenge now. No man is allowed to diss her. So he agrees at the end of the voyage to drive her from Tampa down to Miami to a family christening, and she gets down there, and her brother owns a tattoo parlor. So she's introducing Noah to her family. They go downstairs to play pool or something. They drug him, and she and her brother take Noah to her brother's tattoo parlor. And she has her brother tattoo an image of the chupacabra, which is a mythical. It's in the West Caribbean. In the Caribbean, they call it the goat sucker. It's like a dragon, mythical creature, but they say it's what sucks the blood out of goats and all that. So anyway, she wants Noah to think he's cursed. So, and he's very superstitious. His Jamaican family is very much into Obeah, which is the Jamaican voodoo. They tattoo. Here we go with the tattoos. I'm getting to the branding. They tattoo. She has a tattoo of the chupacabra on his underarm. He's passed out. And then he wakes up the next day and he's relating this to Quinn. They're on watch. He's telling her the backstory. And he says he wakes up with this horrible stinging pain, but there's a throbbing in his privates. And he jumps out of his Jeep because he wakes up passed out. They dumped him someplace and he pulls his pants down. And Lydia had her initials branded on his penis. Well, when I wrote that, which was in the first few chapters, look, I'm blushing. In the first, but I couldn't help it. This is how psycho this Lydia was.
No, we got to make a point. This isn't your firsthand experience, right?
So I thought, either I'm not going to get away with this, people are going to read that and be so shocked, or it'll be such a shock that people will want to buy my book. So I'm just going to let it ride. Nobody ever mentioned it. Not one critic. I did get good reviews. Not one person ever went, she branded his what? People just took it in stride. So I just found that was interesting. And that's, and again, I wrote those books probably 14 years ago. So
Okay.
I was ahead of my time. Don't ever piss off a Puerto Rican. She took it to extremes.
Well, they were kind of, I don't know, kind of been there, done that. Like nothing surprises us anymore. Well, what was funny was when that when it was the tattoo body modification craze started, maybe about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, even after tattoos had been out for some time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. It was interesting that my daughter, who was 9 or 10, she already knew these terms that I didn't know, like gauges,
right. I didn't know that either. I called them plugs, the ears.
Right. And then I started seeing those like people at the supermarket and that kind of thing. And she knew other terms too that I can't even remember. And that's what these kids were that young and they were discussing that kind of thing.
Well, that's in my piece, I at the end when I wrote the piece that we're kind of bouncing off here, and I go through the whole thing and with the gauges and all that. And point being, when they wake up or you come 2 years later, why are grandpa's earplugs about where grandma's boobs should be? Because his ears are dragging. Grandma's had the boob lift. Her boobs are up here and his earlobes are down to there. So I just thought, oh, well, because that's all part.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When your skin loses elasticity when you get older.
Well, those earplugs or the gauges, they bring your ears longer down. And as we get older, I didn't know if people knew this, but your nose gets longer. Your ears actually get longer as you get older. And I think the only reason I regret never getting breast implants is because I still have to wear a bra. Well, no, now I really have to wear a bra. So, you know what I mean? We're friends of mine who've been enhanced.
Well, that's body modification,
I
isn't it?
was going to
And
ask
so is
you if your
plastic
opinion.
surgery is body modification.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But so we were, yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know,
Is
I
beauty in the eye of the beholder then, basically, I guess?
I don't know. I've never thought about getting any kind of plastic surgery done. Maybe I should. I don't know think about doing that, but I just don't. I like those women, like for instance, what's the gal? Oh my God, I'm starting getting a senior moment on that gal who is going to be the director of intelligence for. Uh, uh, uh,
Bondi?
no, no,
No,
no,
excuse
no.
me.
She's from Hawaii. Anyway,
Oh, Tulsi.
Tulsi.
Oh, she's
She's
adorable.
wonderful, and she has that streak of gray hair there.
Yeah,
I think that's really attractive, actually.
I do too.
I mean, someone else might have said, "Oh, you better get your better color that and
Hmm.
blend it together."
Maybe she can't. I
Oh,
know I've had friends, and there are women I know, and God bless you all, who've had chemo and things like that, or other life saving medications that their hair won't take a dye anymore.
oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. So they go gray.
Oh,
And
okay.
let's be honest, I think I started getting gray hair in my
I
30s.
mean, okay, so you
So
couldn't snip that off; it would grow back gray.
I don't know.
Oh,
She
okay.
just might have, it's probably a coarser hair, I would think. I'm not a
Hmm.
hairstylist, but
Hmm.
there could be something where it wouldn't take the color.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, and I think maybe that is why people like to have body modifications. There's a sort of a
Okay.
distinction there
Well, there
that you
too.
have.
And again, I led in with that piece I had written for my text and attitude column. That in it, I said if we were to flash forward 100 years, and if we could be 100 years from now and look back on all the media and the files on what defined the generation 100 years before, everybody was like, when tattoos first became popular, it was to be original.
Hmm.
They wanted something really original
Hmm.
and shocking. And as teenagers, we all kind of like to shock our parents
Well,
once in
making
a
a
while.
statement. I mean, like for
Or a
instance, in
statement, you're right.
'60s or '70s.
Sure.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't really
But
compare. But I
no,
kept my hair long
sure.
as kind of a
A
statement.
statement,
Like
yeah.
okay, you guys have your
And I
nice.
loved guys with long hair back then.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it was the kind of the same thing. It's not a body
Right.
modification, but
But now that almost
it's a statement.
50% of adults have tattoos, what's
Yes,
original about that
right. Yeah,
other than the
sort of like
art?
it's like, yeah, what else you got? It's sort of common now,
Right.
right?
Is there any truth, I wonder, because I read about 10 years ago, and again, I'm not, because I don't get tattoos, I could, care less. I mean, there are some I looked and said, that is gorgeous, or wow, what does that
Some
mean?
tattoos I've seen, I've been
Yeah,
really impressed
very
by with it.
artistic. But I was under the impression that the black, is it ink that they use, is not necessarily a healthy thing. That
Hmm.
particles can
Hmm.
uh, drift
Sure.
into different organs of your
And
body.
then the other thing is, you've got the tattoo artist is going to have to make sure that the instruments are very clean and that
Oh, can you
you make sure
imagine
that you
necrotizing
well
fascia or
you could
whatever?
spread AIDS, you can spread
Dang.
other diseases
Hmm.
if the people you've previously tattooed and you didn't clean your instruments. You got
Yeah.
to make sure that you get somebody who's uh,
So they're
good that way.
probably government controlled or county, state,
To get
like
a
a beauty
license,
parlor, like
I imagine you've got to get a
like in a
license like
hair
that. Right, right,
salon,
right.
or to be a manicurist, you have to
Sure.
have the protocols for sterilization and stuff
Right,
like
right,
that. So,
right.
although I think back when it originated, they probably didn't have that, and people would
No,
go,
no.
"Well, have friends do it." You know,
Hmm.
I still know people who've done their own. They
Mm.
just take a needle and ink or something. I just don't
Mm.
even. I don't like pain. That's the other thing. I hear tattoos are really painful.
Uh,
The process. I don't know.
yeah, I think they're supposed to be less painful now that they've refined
Oh,
it. But yeah, it
okay.
used to be really painful,
Right.
and you had to I don't know. And also there's that stereotypical story about somebody who gets drunk or like somebody in the
Ooh,
Navy
and
gets
wakes up the
drunk and
next day.
yeah and has one. Yeah,
Or
right.
for somebody not in the Navy. I'm sure a lot of young girls come here to Vegas. We have some of the best tattoo parlors,
Ah,
and they're up
yes.
out partying, and they go home with a tattoo that maybe they didn't plan on getting when they got here.
Right,
A reference again, on my, oh God, here I go. It's all about me. My third novel, which is not finished in the sailing series, I modeled an Aussie character after a guy I met in Australia, actually New Zealand. I was on a ship as an lecturer author in New Zealand, and they have the Buskers Festival every year in January. It was great, and they come from all over the world, and it's acrobats, and they're selling, and the most drop dead gorgeous guy. I'm telling you, I was actually buying some jewelry, and he had the kiosk next, and I didn't have the right uh, Aussie change, so he offered to make the change for me. And I had just gotten a fake tattoo of the Southern Cross, and I was giving lectures on the ship, so I was going to fake it that I had gotten a real tattoo, but it was one of those good kind of ones that lasts about 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I did the whole thing. Oh, my arm's so sore, and I was just going to fake everybody out. So I'm chatting with him and the friend I was traveling with, and I went, "Oh, I just got a tattoo." And he said, "Oh, that's nice, mate." And he goes, "Would you like to see mine?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, baby, would I?" He was so gorgeous. I didn't care where his tattoo was. He whips off his shirt and turned around. I'm not kidding. From the base of his neck, which started with the big sun, like the Japanese sun, all the way his whole back
Hmm.
was just solid,
Hmm.
gorgeous dragons. And
Hmm.
it was beautiful and colorful and
Hmm.
vibrant. And I said, "Dude, wow, how long did it take you to get that done, your whole back?" And he went, "A lifetime, mate." You know? And it was gorgeous. It was
Mhm.
beautiful. It suited him. He had long, curly auburn hair, was
Well,
wearing a
the thing
kangaroo
is,
hat.
I wonder if now, since it's, uh, I don't know, the appeal of it has ebbed quite a
Faded?
bit, faded. And, there was, who's that guy, Davidson? I can't remember his first name. The comedian from Saturday Night Live who had a lot of tattoos on his front and his back. And then lately, he got some mental health treatment.
Because of that?
And I think,
Was that part of it?
and I wonder that maybe that's unfair for me to think of, but I think that maybe some people maybe have, there might be a mental health reason for
Oh,
having
well,
it.
like what about the guy that has the can't remember, but I'm sure people know of it, but tattooed to look like Satan, and he's got the
Oh,
bone
sure. There's some of
and
the
the tattooing of the eye. I
oh,
just can't even
right.
imagine that. What
Mm,
person would even go there?
sure.
But they do it so they have the red or
Hmm.
solid black
Hmm.
or
There must be some kind of I'm not a psychiatrist. There must be some kind of mental health
you would think.
issue there
Yeah, and get the
with
teeth
that.
filed, and it's to me that seems like permanent modification.
Hmm.
I mean, you can always cap his teeth if he snaps out of whatever. And then there was, well, go back to plastic surgery. Remember the Catwoman of New York
Mm.
who just
Oh,
passed
yeah, she
recently,
just
by the
passed. Right,
way?
right.
She wanted to look like a cat.
Mm.
So it wasn't even a case of just overdoing the surgery, although we've seen the women that do, when it gets like this and
Hmm.
they can't even move
Hmm.
around, I think it's a bit extreme. It's like being frozen in time or something.
Yeah, and that's not appealing to me either. When
Mm-mm.
I see when you could tell that the person had their face lifted, or
Like many times.
and then now sometimes maybe when people have collagen or that kind of thing injected into their
Hmm.
face to kind of push the wrinkles out,
Sure.
you might not be able to tell.
I think it's
Uh,
refreshing. It's a refreshing thing for women, and nowadays. But again, this is kind of off the subject. But I was saying to some friends it could have been a couple months ago, but how our grandmothers were matronly. I mean, it seemed back in the 50s, 60s, our grandmothers were plump generally, gray hair, wore aprons or cooked or, weird white stockings, whatever. Well, you look at the grandmother even of 20 years ago, and they're hot.
mhm, mhm,
They ain't granny sitting home knitting.
mhm.
They're at the gym. They're at the club. They're getting their hair done. They're getting Botox. They're
Well, there's a whole new, and that's a good point. In our society, there's a whole new, well, there it has been a new view of aging. I remember when I was younger, they used to say, well, I guess in the 50s, when you hit 30, it's sort of like, okay, now you've got to be a upstanding, gentlemanly, mature person, right? And I imagine that was for women too. But then no, it's stopped. I guess probably starting in the '60s and then
Hmm.
the '70s, where no, I want to look younger than 30. I want to go back to 21, or I
Yeah.
want to be 40, but I want to be younger.
My mom
Uh,
always said, she said, gals look their best. She said, after 30, gals look their best at night. You know?
yeah.
And yeah, I guess that was pretty much true.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and then you hear about women and older women who are still going through plastic surgery or implants or liposuction and that kind of thing. And it's
Butt
sort of like, well,
implants.
it's like you're kind of look, it's kind of times kind of past. Why don't you just sort of give up on that? But
I
yeah,
saw an
they can't.
extreme butt implant. I'm sorry, the other day at the market. It was
Uh-huh.
just extreme. It was, I don't know. I don't even know how you could sit down. And I
Right.
mean, the rest of the body and everything was, it was so disproportionate. But she was in the skin tight and had the lips and
Hmm.
the whole thing going on. She looked like she was ready to go pole dancing or something, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
Well, see,
is
that's not attractive to me, and when it's
right.
obvious like that,
Yeah.
and then you see that, and the I guess that someone like that, I'm speculating, but might have some insecurity problems,
Hmm.
and that if they get certain things done, make themselves look better when
I think it
actually
can
they,
become addicting,
well, right,
actually.
they don't have much in the way of self awareness that
Hmm.
it's actually not a good thing for them. They should just kind of kick back and accept who they are.
And that brings us to even what is the standard of beauty?
Mm.
Does the standard of beauty change over decades or something? I mean, who's to say? Although I see all kinds of beautiful women, different races, different everything.
Well, I mean,
There's a symmetry, I think, of how your uh, uh, cheekbones and everything. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or what your ethnic background is. If your face is balanced or geometrically, there's something about that, right? Because
well,
everybody seems to have the same idea of what an attractive man or woman is, what features they have to have.
well, I mean, I guess it goes with the genes and it goes with where
Sure.
you grew up and stuff. If you stayed out of the sun or whatnot,
Mm.
but there's some women who are in their 80s and they still look pretty good.
Right.
And
I have friends like that.
then there's some people who age really quickly.
Right. Even in their 40s, they look
Yeah, yeah,
older than
or
they
even
are.
earlier than that. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I knew a couple of guys in high school that they were. We graduated from high school, and then I saw them later. I can't remember exactly which other. One guy was in construction, but he became bald. I mean, I remember him having pretty good hair, but by the time he was 19, 20,
Yeah, that's
he'd
genetic.
lost his hair.
And I'm
You
saying
know,
all power to hair plugs. I mean, if a guy
uh,
wants to get hair, I'm all for
which is a
it.
body
Right,
modification.
and
Yeah, yeah.
women too. Some women need it. Women as they get older too get a receding hairline and bald
Yeah.
spots and all kinds of stuff. So, I guess when we're talking about the tattoos and the body mods and all that, but where plastic surgery actually is, well, of course, it's a blessing for burn victims or children born with cleft palates, and
Hmm. Sure.
probably what we consider cosmetic surgery. It could be something I read back in the decades. Uh, Started with surgeons repairing burn victims and cleft
Hmm.
palates,
And
and it,
wounded
oh, the
soldiers.
soldiers,
Right.
God love them, God bless them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of, well, we don't even know the percentage of soldiers who've come back missing limbs, half their faces,
Hmm.
things they have to deal with forever and a day. But yeah, so maybe in a way too, but to me it doesn't balance out the I'm gonna go get scarified. Is that a
Hmm.
word?
Scarified. I guess that's a word.
It's like, well, it is because I just said it, so now it's a
But
word.
okay, all right. But then what's the point? I guess it's somebody seeking
I would
what
like answers to that. Whoever views this, if
more.
somebody has an answer
Well, someone's
or
seeking a mate or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they think that uh, they're going to be a little more sexy if they have a scar, a certain spot.
mm-hmm,
But I mean, that's an indication of insecurity.
right.
I think.
So a scar would be more a raised emblem, whereas
Right.
branding would be more embedded, like a
And it
tattoo.
would be a
Tattoo
design. It'd be a
surface,
design. Yeah.
right? Right.
Right. But but yeah, again, associated with slavery and
Hmm.
ownership,
Oh, that's
and perhaps some people with get kind of a sexual kick out of being owned,
yeah.
and
Well,
have
yeah, S and
a
M B
brand
and
there.
D, S and
Uh
M
huh.
B and D. I mean, we've always had that. That's been around for thousands of years.
Sure.
It's just now with the internet, everybody gets to participate if they want, right? I'm
Right.
sure there's something out there for everybody, but that's kind of scary. And that kind of reminded me of our previous podcast about the sex and everything, and how this generation has probably been so oversaturated with it. And somebody did make a comment that they said, well, sex sells. And
Hmm.
you even made the comment that when they started juggling with the motion picture ratings and
Hmm.
also the blurry images popping up on the screen, once I thought about it, and I'm one of those, oh, I wish I would have thought of that then. But okay, maybe it does sell and maybe people wanted it. But I can tell you for a fact, we parents didn't want it. We did not want it on our televisions,
Hmm.
where our kids could have any access to it.
Hmm.
We weren't asking for it. So to me, why didn't they just leave it where you had to buy porn or adult content
Hmm.
rather than it being in any manner
Well, it's
available to the
so
child?
it's instant now on even a kid's iPhone,
Yeah,
pornography.
yeah,
So
yeah.
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 And I think that we kind of made that point that maybe, and that's been true for years now. And so we kind of made that point that maybe that has desensitized people so much. Where, well, that's so
Overstimulated.
yes, I've
Yeah.
seen that so often that that you've kind of ruined sex for me. It's not as important.
Too, now that we're, well, we've been there. That was a rodeo. But we don't see a lot of children, thank God, with tattoos. I mean,
No.
I haven't. Have you?
No, except those ones you got in a Cracker Jack box or something.
Oh, yeah. The fake ones that you lick
The
them and
water
stick them or
ones,
you
yeah,
water them. And yeah.
right,
Oh, you get a
right,
lot of
right.
things.
And I don't know. I mean, tattooing I think is legal in just about every state. Um, Scarification and branding, not sure about that.
Hmm.
Maybe maybe it is allowed most everywhere,
I never
but I
even thought
don't
of
know
that.
about age restrictions.
Right.
I would imagine that there probably are
I
age
think
restrictions.
tattoos have age
Yeah,
restrictions,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
I
kind
would
of like
think so.
smoking
18
and
and
right.
older.
And,
Yeah.
recreational marijuana or whatever.
Mm.
Does recreational marijuana have an age? It must. 18
I think it's
or like 21, like
21. I think.
okay, so like
Yeah.
alcohol,
Right.
like anything,
Right. And then some people are saying it should be reduced to 18. I
But
know,
it's
but
a hoot like when you go into a coffee shop and the barista has got the gauges,
yeah.
that tongue. Oh, that tongue thing. I don't know how anybody could do that.
Well, see, and that's funny because I used to
I have
see
friends
that
that have
so often. Have a gauge in there,
a tongue
but you
piercing.
don't a tongue piercing, right? I just don't see that much anymore. I mean,
Right.
it's like maybe it's really gone down from what it was 10 years
I
ago.
just can't imagine that.
It
I'm
was like a
sorry.
really a fast
I
fad.
kind of think little nose rings, especially. I mean,
Yeah.
I have always really thought Indian, the Indian, Middle East Indian,
Hmm.
their art is beautiful
Hmm.
and the people are beautiful. And I love the ruby. It's a religious thing where the women have the dot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And of course, they had the piercings
Hmm.
and the belly dancers with the belly button ring. Belly button rings are cute, I think on the right body. Um, to me, like having a nose ring, unless it was removable, it would be kind of unsanitary, almost like if you have to blow your nose, right, or
Hmm.
whatever. The eyebrow thing, not so sure about. That's okay.
Well, I remember there was this one gal. I wish I could remember her name. This I remember her last name's Pugh. What's that actress? English actress?
Pugh.
No, Pugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can't remember her first name, but gorgeous woman. I thought she was sexy as all get out,
Hmm.
and I loved seeing her, like, the paparazzi pictures of her because
Hmm.
she's so beautiful and unbelievable actress. She's only in her late 20s, I think.
Wow.
But then I thought she really spoiled herself when she had the nose ring
Oh, that
there.
one.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
was
of
like, oh,
this one.
oh, what did you do that for? Oh
That one
man.
for me is too much like a cow. I'm sorry.
Well,
No, you just want to, cows have them,
yeah,
and
right.
that's how they lead them around,
Sure,
but or
sure, sure.
bulls or whatever. But
But I
yeah,
mean, it's
you're
sort
right.
of like maybe it's this desire to even look even better than you are, and it's why gild the lily, you
Does
know?
it bring attention to you, or does it take attention
Yeah,
away from your
I
natural
think it takes
beauty?
attention away, and maybe that's an intention to take
And
attention away a
and
little
again,
bit.
I'm not knocking people for this. I don't think that's our intent here at all. We're
Mm.
just exploring the whole thing. But uh, and I had known people with earrings that just completely covered the
I used to
lobe.
see those a lot. I
Yeah.
don't see them anymore.
Well, I think that the maintenance is that Avon calling?
Yeah.
How is this possible? It must be Amazon. I ain't talking. Hopefully, they won't ring the bell again. We'll excuse that. But a lot of maintenance has to go into stuff like that. You have to keep it
Hmm.
clean. Anytime you have anything punctured, like an opening or something. Uh, and I remember too, but then when I was younger, my dad would not allow us to get our ears pierced, and everybody
Hmm.
had pierced ears. It
Hmm.
was just, I mean, I just couldn't stand it anymore. So I had a friend do it. We did the old needle,
Oh,
oh, with the ice cube and all that.
ah,
And I don't know why I never
and
thought
you
my,
put a string there,
yeah, or some, I can't, think
it's
it was,
got you got to keep it open. So,
yes, yeah, yeah. And I don't know why I never thought my dad would notice. Hello. But unfortunately, he went like this to my hair, and it ripped my ear
oh,
because he went, "What is that?"
and
And
you, oh,
he didn't know that. Just like, what is that? So that was back then. Years later, I had it done professionally, redone. But I see, especially those darling little Latina babies, they get their ears pierced like when they're like a month old or something, or
hmm,
immediate after
hmm,
childbirth.
hmm,
Because it's a traditional thing.
hmm,
It's a custom, and it looks adorable.
hmm,
They're just cute. I don't see anything wrong with ear piercings for some reason.
hmm, hmm.
If you have the patience to put in 15 earrings, all power to you. You know,
Yeah.
the older we get, the more low maintenance. At least in my book, I was like, nah. I do have two. I had one up here on each
Oh,
side,
you had
but
some more of the.
just one, because I always wanted, like, if you had a hoop earring here, you could have a little diamond stud up here. I thought that was cute. That was back in when I was 20. But over time, I just don't even know if they're
Well,
still
and
there.
that's another
It's
thing.
like
There was that you had a former boyfriend who I knew
we loved
pretty
him
well,
dearly.
and he got his ear pierced, and he had put it one on one ear, and he always emphasized, and I can't remember which it's left or right, but back then in the 80s, 90s, if you had it on one side, it meant you were
Gay.
gay, and the other side it was you
It
were
was
straight.
left, we were straight, and that was what the sailors back in the day was when they sailed across the equator. That was when they would get their left ear pierced. There were three things or four things a sailor had to do, and I've done all but one of them. One is sail across the equator. The other is see the Southern Cross when I did the fake tattoo, and I already had the ear pierced. But yeah, those were things that so sailors would recognize. Oh yeah, you've sailed. You've really been
Mhm.
around the globe
But if
there,
you
babe.
weren't a sailor, you'd be on the other side.
Well, or yeah, or even maybe they had gay sailors. I don't know. So, but I think it was the left side.
But why
Is
was
that
it the
like
left
a
side?
maybe? Why do we wear wedding rings on our
Oh,
left
okay,
finger? I don't
okay, all
know.
right. So
Well,
that's where
that's
it
a good
became.
question.
That's where it became.
Why
Uh,
do people wear wedding rings on their left finger?
mm.
I have a theory. I just thought of it. Is it because the preponderance of people are right-handed, and if you had a ring and you're working on machinery or something, and it could get caught? How's that for a wild idea?
That's a good question. That's probably there's an answer
Why?
to that
Yeah, there
somewhere.
must be.
How
It could be
that
biblical,
tradition?
even,
Yes, right.
right?
Right.
Although in Europe they wear it on. Was it Sweden? Some of the countries the wedding band is on the right finger.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I've
Hmm.
noticed that in my travels. Because
Hmm.
I had something on my right finger, and they thought I was married. And I didn't want to be thought
Well,
of as
this is
married.
the married. This is the married finger, isn't it? Isn't this the
In Europe?
yeah? Well, here in
No, it's
America,
our left.
left.
You
Oh,
wear your wedding ring on your
I
right
when I
finger.
was married, I had my wedding ring here, but I got married in
No
Italy.
wonder you got divorced. No. Well, see, you got married in Italy.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
probably the
yeah.
statement. I think it was in Italy when I realized that I had the ring on the
Well,
wrong
and
finger.
and the
What do you
thing
know?
is, I don't wear jewelry. I don't even wear a watch.
Hmm.
I for a while I wore a watch, but I just got tired of it making marks on my wrist and then
Yeah,
having to put it
I know
down and then
quite a few men that don't
kind of
want to
get
wear it.
gross
Yeah,
there. And when I had my wedding ring, I always noticed it was there, and I was always kind
fiddling
of
with it.
fiddling with it, right? And then finally, I just told my wife at the time, and I said, "Look, I just don't want to wear it anymore. I'm
Which
tired of it."
wife was that? Your
I don't
first?
want to
Was
say
it your
which one.
first or your second? That's all you
Uh,
have to say.
First,
Okay, thanks.
but I took it off. I took it off, and then she took hers off too, and then put it in a necklace. So she
Oh,
always had it
nice.
with me. I just put mine in a drawer. But
A lot of
I
widows do that. They'll take the stones or something and have it made into a necklace or another ring or something, or you know,
sure, sure.
just to or use it in the following marriage. Just
Well,
resell it.
there's some guys that they like jewelry. I just don't like it. I just don't like the feel of it on me.
I know men like that.
And
Yeah. And
yeah.
then there are some men that you couldn't pry it off of their dead, cold, dying finger, right? Because just dropped my spectacles. I hate to make a spectacle out of myself, but speaking of getting older, I can't see you know what. It depends. Some mornings I'm good. But we had a Super Bowl party yesterday, and there was a little bit of imbibement. Not that much. I mean, I had to
Yeah.
drive home. I was good, but I woke up this morning with those fuzzy eyes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was funny. So I was just checking here on our. Well, that goes. We could throw this in here because we are talking about body modification
Mm.
and cosmetic. Actually, we shouldn't say plastic surgery anymore. It's cosmetic.
Oh, okay.
So when I was ranting in my text and attitude piece, I somehow spun off on that. I didn't feel that beauty queens like Miss America, blah 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 blah. Are they really beauty queens if everything is surgically enhanced? What about
Mm-hmm.
natural beauty? Shouldn't they be naturally talented,
Mm-hmm.
naturally
Mm-hmm.
gifted, naturally beautiful? But no. So the cleavage has changed over the
Yeah.
decades. I mean, I
Yeah.
know I don't think I ever saw my mom's cleavage because if they did go out and she was dressed to go out, we were probably in bed. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Maybe in a
Uh,
bathing suit or something. But as a course of daily wear, you just didn't see that when we were growing up. You didn't
yes,
see.
right.
Well, now there are boobs everywhere. It's just
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
cleavage and 6 mile. Like that woman that you're interviewing, didn't she have a 6 inch
That
cleavage?
one, yes, right, right.
When she was in her prime.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So, and we had Carol Dota in San Francisco, but I noticed cleavage has changed because
Good.
I've seen women who've had enhancements,
Mm-hmm.
and rather than the cleavage line, there's like 2 inches of space, like a runway
Right.
between each breast because each
Sure.
one is so firm and bare, right? So, and you can't push them together. Well, back then, now I know they've gone from what they were using in women, which was making them sick, by the way, back in the 80s and 90s, silicone implants that were leaking. And
Mm.
I know that they've developed more human, softer.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have friends back then, and if they hugged you, you were like, oh my God, am I bruised? Because their breasts were so hard
Mm.
from the implants.
Mm.
But
Mm.
so as a man, have you noticed how cleavage has changed, or is what to you is an attractive?
I don't really see that many exposed cleavages now. Um, Sometimes some women, maybe when they're about to go out, they've got a sexy dress on, but
Mhm.
I don't see that. That you started to see that in the '60s. Well, actually, maybe the '50s, but more and more in the '60s when attitudes about sex were starting to relax, and it was the sexual revolution.
Yeah,
I
no
remember
bra.
when I was a kid, I remember going camping with my father and my brother, and we were out near Reno. I think we were camping at Donner Lake in California, and my dad took us to Reno. And back then, it was pretty relaxed. The casinos, you could walk around if you're a kid. And I remember seeing this waitress come up to my dad, and he was playing a nickel slot machine.
Mhm.
And this waitress comes up, and and I hadn't seen this. I was like maybe 10 or 11. I hadn't seen anything like that. And she had this cleavage thing with covering both breasts, but then you could see the lining of her breasts going down this way. And there was a button here. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, 10 or
Oh God,
11.
you mean like it was open?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I've had
open. It
outfits
was
like
open
that
like right
actually.
here. It was just, and I had never seen something like that. And then, and also a really short skirt.
Mhm.
And then, and you know, I don't know. That's when I really saw something up close like that, and that was must have been about 1967, maybe.
Mhm.
And uh, and then, of course, later in the 70s, cleavages were just, and we talked about that too, but just even beyond cleavage, it was like no bra. So a
Right,
woman
right,
would
right.
walk around, and you like see at the supermarket, you
And there
see
is no cleavage when you have
her,
no bra.
right,
I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but generally
right,
speaking,
right,
I don't
right.
even think that's humanly possible unless you have really big fake ones that
Right.
are
So the
pressed together.
cleavage is all about wearing a bra. Then.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
or yeah, tight fitting dress or something.
Yes.
And
Right.
I
Right.
think it's beautiful when it's properly, you know, uh, there's
Sure. It
nothing
can be
prettier than
very
a beautiful
attractive and
woman in a
nice.
beautiful evening gown and a slow cut and
Right.
arm. And I even love a dress with it not all the way up to the hip, but a slit up above the knee. I think that's
Hmm.
just elegant looking. I don't know why. I think it's
Sure.
sexy.
Mhm.
But yeah.
But I don't see that as much
Mhm.
as I did say from the 60s to the 80s and the 90s.
And again, there are some women who need and deserve to have breast implants.
Oh, sure.
You
Sure.
know, if they're, it's such a genetic thing.
Sure.
You know, if you're 18 and flat as a board, there's nothing wrong when all your friends are, blossomed and stuff like that. That's, I mean,
But for women, do also do that for professional reasons.
sure.
Uh, in
Health
movies and
reasons, thank you, Lord, that
well, I
women
mean,
have had to have mastectomies and
sure, sure.
that they can.
But
So,
in movies and plays, they do that to make themselves look more attractive as actresses.
so this whole thing, and if we all lumped it up under cosmetic or what did you call it, body modification.
Hmm.
So it's like a coin. There's a flip side, but both sides of the coin, it's the same coin.
Well, yeah, you're going to get agreements and disagreements
Yeah,
with the
and
the decision you made.
yes,
Uh,
right. And but some things I think are irreversible, don't you? I don't know how you would undo tattoos in your eyeballs.
right,
It's
right.
just like I don't even. I mean, I had to have a needle stuck in my eye once because I had to have an eye surgery, but they didn't warn me that they were going to stick a needle. If they, it was the most. Maybe I was traumatized as a child. Remember, uh, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye.
Hmm.
So when I saw that needle coming, I started coming out of the chair, and they were
Hmm.
holding me, and I
Hmm.
said, "You should have told me." It totally freaked me out.
Wow. Yeah.
It just freaked me out. But
Yeah.
and then some people are just afraid of needles in general.
Sure.
Even like a tattoo or getting a shot or something
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I wonder if this fascination with the tattoos, this generation, like I said, they are getting older,
Hmm.
and the impetuousness and the hormones, as we know, of our youth have toned down. So it should be interesting to see how these people feel now with the sleeves and the ones I'm talking about are in their 20s. It's young,
Hmm.
in 30s, but when they're grandparents or great grandparents, where's that at?
Well, yeah, there might be a whole new slew of people who want to have those things removed. They thought I made the decision back then, and now I don't like it, and
And
it's
again, it could
probably
even look
easier to get
ugly.
it. It might be getting easier to get those removed than it
Yeah, there's
once
that with
was.
laser, yeah, the
Sure,
laser surgeries and
sure, but
stuff
I mean,
like
I
that.
think it's over a period of time. You get a layer of skin off, then you have to come back over and over and over again to get different
And
layers
it
off.
is so costly. I could go Pollyanna again, which I did in the closing of the piece that I wrote, where maybe I should just quote myself directly, but uh, all the money that's spent by people, and there's some vanity, maybe narcissism in this, but if you could take all that money that's spent on tattoos,
Mm,
scarification, uh, augmentation, breast augmentation. I mean, let's throw in Viagra and all the things that recreational or personal enhancement, and then also the cost to remove that, if you and when you decide one day that that was just something from your youth, if all that money could be channeled into something good,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Something
Like
else.
babies or
Yes.
cancer or St.
Well,
Jude's
you
or
don't know what people are going to do with
no,
their disposable income.
no,
I,
and
I
it's
think
their
we
choice.
we probably ought to mention, and it's a sensitive subject, um, uh, especially in the last 10 years, I would say, and then maybe the last 5 years, people deciding to uh, become another sex through
Oh,
through
gender.
gender bending or whatever,
Wow.
and having their
Mm.
face modified, their
Adam's
sexual
apple shave.
organs modified,
Yeah.
and try a man. I think most of the time it's a man trying to look like a woman. I don't.
Okay.
That's just my
Why
impression.
can't they just tuck it and fake it? I mean,
Well,
because back. I mean, I always used to like the drag shows here. Remember Frankie
sure.
Moreno or
Yes, right. Those are
Fra-
funny.
uh, yeah,
Uh,
and
uh, uh,
Frank Kerr, Kenny Kerr.
yeah,
He was my
right.
neighbor actually
Oh,
for
okay.
about a year,
Oh,
and
okay.
had a fabulous young son, Christian. I hope he's doing well. He was such a polite,
Mm.
wonderful young addition to the neighborhood. He was about the same age as my son
Well,
at the
and
time.
that's theater and that's fun,
Hmm.
and these are
San
people
Francisco was
playing.
known for the drag clubs. I
Sure,
mean,
sure,
yeah, who didn't?
sure.
Most of the humor, you could look like McHale's Navy and all the old shows at some point, and some of our most famous old time, we're talking like 50s and 60s comedians, they would get the biggest laughs when they did
Well,
drag.
I mean, Milton Berle
Yeah.
would was famous for
Yes.
dressing as a woman. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. The Three
yes,
Stooges, I mean, they all did it at one point.
yeah. I
And,
mean, Johnny Carson had that running
right.
kind of thing,
And everybody loved it.
and it's funny. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is, I mean, is somebody, especially a young
Well,
person,
young
is
people
it
should not.
pure
No.
pure
Right.
pressure?
Right.
And I mean, and then you hear these bad stories that are still going on, where teachers who have their own political viewpoints are going to maybe suggest children, maybe you're really a girl, you're not a boy, and then
That's
and the
so out of line.
California, the legislature there. I mean, come on, it's that political bent. They put a law saying that
Well,
schools cannot tell parents if a child wants to transition, or if a child is
that's
being interested
I don't know how
in
any
going.
sane
I don't
person.
know either, but I
No,
mean,
as a
it's just
parent, no.
the legislature is
Teachers should strictly stick to reading, writing, arithmetic.
sure.
We've all seen, well, that's a whole can of worms, but we've seen the statistics here in Nevada. Eighth graders can barely read.
Well, yeah.
No, it's horrifying,
Yeah.
much less do math. And as we all know, they were taught not to ever do cursive and sign their signature. Good Lord,
Well,
whatever. But,
that brings up the point
whoops.
too, where you've got people maybe having second thoughts about having their tattoos from years ago, and then now you're getting people who are detransitioning, also who uh, you know
In the heat
their
of youth,
their parents were told,
yes.
"Would you rather have an alive daughter or a dead son?" And which the implication was, well,
Right.
the kid has gender dysphoria or whatever, and
Treat it then, but
wants to
don't.
really become another sex. And then I've seen these stories of these people down there in their 20s, and they said, well, that's what the doctor told my parents, and then so I
Well,
agreed
the
to
parents
it.
should have stepped up and been a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the parents are at fault too, but I mean, somebody who's 13, 14, 15, 16. I mean, that's too young to
It
make a
is, and
decision like
also
that.
I remember what I was like when I was 14, 15. I was rebellious. My hormones were raging. I mean, it was just
Hmm.
all it was.
Hmm.
I was, you know, go. You just go through stages. Like I was, I'd always wear a coat. Like it was cold out, but still, I just was kind of shy. Didn't want to show my breasts and
Hmm.
everything, and I
Hmm.
outgrew that, thank God. But
Hmm.
that was all because it was that transitional period. 11, 12, 13, 14, and then those. It's just too impressionable
And
then.
it just seems to me, it's
That's
just about vile for an adult to tell a child, or pressure a child, or to lobby a child to think about being another sex and then think about maybe getting hormonal treatments or something like that,
And it's even
and then
worse, the surgeries.
keeping it from their parents.
But then they're
Uh,
bragging, and we've seen the pictures, and they're marching in the streets with the scars from the removal of the breasts and the
uh, uh,
scarification. And maybe it's a form of that they don't even, no, seriously, think about it, that they're, to them, that is a badge of honor. I had my breasts removed. I am now
sure.
a man or something. We're not quite sure.
Well, and
I
to
do
work,
believe those are absolutely uh, mental, psychological.
well, and it's like scarification and branding. At a certain point, after you've had those surgeries, there's no turning back. I mean, you'll never have children. You'll never
Right,
have sex
physically.
correctly.
Yeah, physically they can try to repatch it, but it's already done so much endocrine and hormonal. You're right. Yeah, no, it's
Right.
just like
I mean, some of the surgeries will remove the possibility of having children. I mean,
exactly. I mean,
uh,
it's just even deeper than we know, and that
so that's really kind of as
you
far as
know.
body modification
Mhm.
gets, right?
Too, and I wandered down this path many years ago, and there was a piece I wrote. God, we're so old now, and I mean, stuff I've written 40 years ago, or you know, and we don't have. I have some tear sheets from back in the day. Remember, we had tear sheets. We didn't,
Hmm.
but then the electronic stuff, like my electronic on uh, uh, the magazines here, remember City Life and all that, all their files are gone on the internet. So
Right.
if we didn't have our tear sheets, we would have no record.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but
So many
I
publications
had,
are dead. They
yeah,
weren't
and
microfilmed or
I
anything.
did keep tear sheets,
Uh-huh.
or I do screenshots of my work. But I had gone off on this. I do these tangent things. It's because I'm an Aries, I guess. But of oh, I know what it was. This is okay. I am a DES baby, and so is my sister, 2 years older than I am. And DES was a steroid given to women in the 50s to prevent miscarriages. So my mother ultimately had 6 children. She had 4 children, then 2 miscarriages, and she got pregnant with my sister Kathy. And they said, we have this, you're after the 2 miscarriages, it's an experimental steroid shot, but you could probably keep the baby. Being Catholic, she did. Then she got pregnant with me. Being Catholic, she got pregnant again, of course. And
Mm.
they advised her to either abort me or take the steroid shots. Anyway, she took the DES with both my sister and myself. And I know my sister's okay with me sharing this. So as the years went by, it turned out that, and you can Google DES babies, the steroid adversely affected the offspring of the women, their reproductive organs. How pinpointed is that? Nothing else but the reproductive organs.
Mm.
So my sister grew up, got married. It was their plan to have a big family, and she suffered 2 ectopic pregnancies. The first one, they were like, this is a fluke. Second one, they went, no, something's up. Autopsied it, and her fallopian tubes were deformed. So
Mm.
it became ectopic. She had to have everything removed. She couldn't have kids. It was horrible. She was
Oh, too
heartbroken
bad.
now. So, well, then I was told I could never have children because I had the T-shaped womb, uh, and that was a deformity. So they had actually come out with studies that 86% of the offspring of the women who were given that either had cancer or deformities of the reproductive
Oh,
system. Well, that
terrible.
is horrifying,
Yeah, right.
86%.
Hmm.
And I even think of, I'm vague about that because I was probably 16 or 15, but we had to be part of a study or something. So me having Matt, my son, is truly a miracle.
Hmm.
And when I did get pregnant, and I did have a high risk pregnancy, and he did come prematurely because of all the complications, but he's fine. He's fabulous. He's better than fine. Um, I named him Matthew because it means gift of God, because it was truly a miracle.
Hmm.
And so often thought, well, gee, it could have been worse if I'd been another decade later. I would have been a thalidomide baby. Remember the
Oh, those
thalidomide
were
babies?
awful
Awful
deformity.
flippers, and that
Yes.
was again another experimental uh, drug. I don't know if that was a hormone, but
I think it
it
was
was
a. I
for
think it was.
morning sickness,
Yes, it was to
like a tranquilizer,
treat
treat
nausea.
nausea. Yeah,
Yeah.
but look what happened.
Yeah.
And I believe the DES, diethylstilbestrol is the full name of it, was actually some kind of a cow hormone extract. So if I start mooing, or no, my son doesn't have horns, he didn't grow
Well, I
tail.
mean, it worked
Well,
because
she kept the
she kept
children.
the children, but then there was
Right.
there were this
Well, she could have,
side effects.
again, it's a touchy subject, but she could have aborted me. I
Yeah.
mean, that was, and my gosh, the poor woman had had 5 children, and she had issues, varicose veins, really bad back then, and had to have a special surgery and her legs bound. It was awful, but
Mm.
she persevered, out of faith, and I'm very thankful that she did. So those are personal decisions. But yeah, back to this. What? Oh, so I know why I got rambling is because was thinking, what about I never had to take birth control? I never took birth control ever, never the pill, nothing ever, because I was told I could never get pregnant. And thank God I didn't because I got mad, right?
Hmm.
But then I got looking into birth control pills, and they so affect a woman's hormones.
Mhm.
And if you look back, they haven't been around that long. To really do full term like with us in the 50s with the DES, it took until the children were born to figure out that anything was, and they still don't know if it's generational, like is it going to happen to my son's sterility or his son, because
Mm.
we haven't been around that long.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
there's no way to test that. So this jacking women around with their hormones, like when you can make a woman not have a period for 6 months to a year, I think there's something wrong there. I mean, you know what I mean? Some of
Right.
these,
Right. Fooling your system
right.
that way.
Yes. And
You.
it's always doing adjusting the hormones. So could there be a hormonal something in women who've been, and these women have been, girls have been on a hormone, I mean, birth control pill since what, they were 12. Some parents put their daughters on it the minute they hit puberty.
Mhm.
Like that, what is the shot that they were urging all the young from 11-year-old the inoculation to not get HPV, human
Sure.
papillomavirus,
Sure.
and these kids haven't even hit puberty yet. They shouldn't even be thinking about sex, but in this day and age, as we know, it's everywhere. So point being, I wonder if all that playing God with women's hormones has some residual effect where these children, there's some hormonal imbalance that these kids are actually experiencing that leads a boy to think he should be a girl. And see where
Mm.
I'm, do
Oh,
you
well,
see where I'm going with this?
maybe this has had an effect on the rate of gender dysphoria.
That's what I mean. Like, could
Right.
this hormonal
Could be. Yeah.
dissonance, is that a good word for that? Dissonance be
Well,
passed?
you know what is what I've seen, and other people have made this point, is that you've seen like particularly in the Hollywood community. God, I think there was that actress Cynthia Nixon who was saying that, well, my son is trans and his best friend's trans and this person's trans and this person's
It's
trans that I'm
too
close to.
concentrated,
It's too concentrated. So
I think.
it's been called a social contagion
I believe
where
it.
they're pressured from they got sort of
Well,
left
look at,
wing open attitude, way too open attitudes, I'll say, and
but look what
that
happened to,
influences them. And it can't be something genetic. It's got to be
well,
a
I'm not saying
social
all of it,
construct. Yeah,
but
but I mean,
a
it's a
social construct.
social
But
construct.
look what we went through. I mean, I was a product of the 60s and 70s, so the late 60s and 70s. But we went through from poodle skirts to mini skirts to social pressure. I mean, that's how it all came about, doing drugs, smoking pot. Pot was a felony where I lived in Oregon when I was a
Mm,
teenager. And when I moved to Nevada,
it
actually, in
was a
the 80s, it
felony,
was a felony here. If
still
you
a
even had,
felony.
if you had a roach in your car, you could go to prison, right?
Hmm.
So all those constructs led us to uh, morph and relax. So there is that pressure because why would, like you said, it's as similar, this peer pressure. Well, you sure you're a boy or a girl?
Hmm.
What was that thing they used to call it? The boarding school syndrome, where girls who always sleep together or something, might kiss or do something, but they're not full blown lesbian or having sex or something.
Yeah, sure. Right.
And or I don't know, you guys don't spend the night together, but I've had to bunk with girlfriends, and wake up in the morning and they got their arm around you, and you go, oh Georgie, whatever, because it's they're asleep,
Well,
right?
and this
So
made me think this absurd in my opinion, I'm sorry, people will disagree. It's absurd so-called documentary claiming that Abraham Lincoln was gay
Whatever.
because and this is the thing, and if you read 19th century literature, okay, so they would have boarding houses. They didn't have hotels really. They
Right.
had boarding houses,
Yeah.
and if you were on the road,
You'd have to share a room.
you have to share a room, and not only that, but they'd a smaller than a single bed. I mean, you basically had to sleep
Sure.
back to back or something like that. All right, and so and it didn't mean that you were gay and that you were having sex. It meant that you were together like that, and then maybe these men would become close, and that like even Lincoln would say, "Oh, I love you" or something like that as a friend, but not as a gay thing. But it's sort of like, well, oh, see,
You
Lincoln
know,
was gay, so look,
that's so
I mean, I
lame.
just it's
It's
really
like, even
lame,
why bring that into the conversation? But I've
right?
had to do, when I was doing the yacht deliveries back in, I was what, 18, 19 in Florida, and I was hired to cook and help deliver yachts. And I never knew who, what, when, where, how, why, or when, right? But it, one of my longest crossings was from Islington. Harry's flew over there and sailed back to Tampa. And we had to stand watch. I cooked, I did watch. And it was a small boat. And so I had to bunk with a guy I didn't even know. But what we did is we slept head to toe,
Oh, okay,
because we
sure.
had to sleep in the same thing. And I didn't want any hanky panky, and I doubt he wanted any either. But that's what we did. We had to deal with it.
Uh,
So there were things
right,
that you do,
sure,
otherwise it's human nature.
yeah,
If you're asleep and you're pressed up against somebody, you might put your arm around them,
right.
right? I mean, I think I would. It would, you're used to sleeping with your husband or wife, and now you're on a road trip, sound asleep, you're going to roll over. And you know how you guys are in the morning, anything can happen. It's sorry. It's just like a joke there.
Yeah, but I
But
mean,
I'm
it's just
blushing.
they want to make a point out of
Right.
that.
But again, I think trying to drag in historical figures,
Yeah,
and again, back in I used to read the old uh, romance novels, Queen Elizabeth, and
hmm
there were always dandies in the courts.
hmm
They called them dandies, and these were the guys who really knew how to dress,
hmm hmm
who really were into fashion,
hmm
and they would rouge their cheeks, and they were very dandy
hmm
and very elegant and very soft with the ladies. And probably there's a percentage that were truly gay, and probably the others were just guys who liked that lifestyle, and they were having affairs with the women. And
hmm
it wasn't that it was a gay thing, so to speak, but
hmm
but everything's changed now. You can't, when you say gay now, it means a homosexual, which is outdated.
hmm
But back in the day, all the old songs and everything, we had a gay old time.
Well,
And then the rainbow now,
yeah, right. That
yeah,
word changed meanings, of
yeah.
course.
But like, because so many of the old classics is, let's be gay.
Well, I mean, and that was probably it was like there was also the term Greek. Oh, he's Greek,
Oh yeah,
right, right, and those were like code words. So
right,
gay was probably a code word
yeah.
for people.
So the
To make
Greeks
that point.
were, well, let's not get into that. Were they known for?
Yeah, the Greeks were known for men having sex with men,
Oh, okay.
and that having sex with a woman was procreation, but
Interesting.
having a
So
real
having a sex with another man was recreation, and having sex
yes,
with a woman was
yes,
procreation.
well, procreation.
Those poor women were so uh, constrained.
Yes, right,
Well,
right,
women were, up
yeah,
until about the 50s and 60s,
right,
until
right,
women got
exactly,
working again. Good heavens, that's a whole other,
right. That
you
I mean,
know.
so much changed in the '70s and the '80s.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so that gets us back on the track of, how the tattoos became so acceptable when they weren't. They were acceptable for servicemen,
right,
right? I mean,
right.
that was, you'd expect that.
Yeah,
And
women didn't really get tattoos. I mean, until
no,
what, the '70s, maybe.
yeah. And now
Uh,
I think, I should have run a research thing on that, the preponderance. What is the men versus women, the percentage? But
uh
I mean, I
yeah,
could do it now, but I don't want to take away from,
right.
so we've been at this for almost an hour. Oh my gosh, an hour and 15 minutes. I thought we were only going to do half an hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is only our second one. At least we've got a little bit better background.
Oh well, at least we have kind of like a party attitude, and this is for
Yeah.
people maybe taking really long walks don't mind listening to a rambling
I
conversation.
don't know. Joe Rogan goes 3 hours without even thinking, but and I like him, but I find myself, I personally don't listen for all 3 hours.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where I would find the time because I in the
That
morning
is a super long time.
it
I
is.
mean, an
So
hour is long enough. I mean,
okay, well on that note, is there anything that we should bring to the table? I mean,
I
like is
I think we've gone in so many different directions,
but we kind
and
of
there's
kept
another time we kept it pretty focused on body
pretty on track,
modification,
yes, and
and then because it's a topic that lends to other related topics.
oh
What
yeah, I
yeah.
think it's all embedded, so to speak. It's all about how people perceive themselves, I
Well,
guess,
yes, and
and how they want to express themselves,
they're right. Their personal views of themselves, their
and of the
mental
world, their
men,
outlook on the world,
right, their
right?
mental health, and
Right.
yeah,
And there are other things too. I mean, people have a lot of tragedies to deal with or things to deal with, and sometimes to get, I don't know, out of their own pain,
sure.
so to speak, or something. We're not condemning anybody. I hope nobody takes offense
No,
at
and
this.
it sounds like we're a little more on the conservative side, but
Well, I'm totally conservative. I was
that's
born conservative. I can't help it. It's just
yeah.
my nature.
I mean that's just my viewpoint. So
Yeah,
I mean you can disagree on
yeah,
that.
yeah. But let's all agree to disagree and or agree. And comments are welcome. Constructive criticism always welcome. Just don't be mean. There's no point in being mean.
Well, right. I just want to say that uh, maybe I sound kind of critical of LGBTQ side, but
Well,
my brother's gay, and I understand him, and so I mean, I'm open to uh, however people want to live their lives, but not when it's forced on children.
exactly. And I,
Uh,
again, one of my best friends is gay, and I had gay roommates in the like 1973 in
mhm,
Miami when gay was not cool.
mhm,
It wasn't a cool
mhm,
thing to be
mhm.
gay. And we would go to the gay bars and it was all kind of underground. Or if we went to straight bars, I
And you
was
know
the
what? Gay.
beard.
I went to some gay bars with like women, straight women,
Mhm.
and it was a hoot. It was funny.
It is
It was
fun.
fun. I
And
mean,
Mike Paskovich's, my ex darling boyfriend, his Uncle Freddie was gay. I adored him. He
hmm
lived up in Hollywood. As a matter of fact, he turned me on to that song, uh, Where Are the Clowns?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that song. So every time we'd go see Uncle Freddie, he and I would dance to that
Well,
song.
and the other
So
thing is,
lovely
I gotta
man.
say this. Okay, so I'm straight, but there have been a lot of wonderful artists who are gay, and I'm not
Mm.
just
No,
patronizing.
no,
I
no.
mean,
I think it's clear.
Tennessee Williams, and,
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde. I mean, just Gore Vidal. I mean, these are people that I've enjoyed reading
Well,
them and that kind of thing. So,
to me, there's a
I want people to know
genuine
that.
gay. No, there's a genuine gay that I love and respect.
Yeah.
Genuinely. I could tell a genuine gay person when I meet one. But then I see a lot of what I consider trendy, and they're
Yeah.
usually, the baristas and the this and that and the other, and it's
Right.
just, and
Right.
even my very gay friend is, and two of my very, actually one of my roommates from back in Miami,
hmm
we and I got back together after we hadn't seen each other in 40 years. It was like we'd never parted. They both are anti this transgender movement.
hmm
They don't
hmm
think it's right. They don't think it's good. I could be crude. One of my friends, he goes, I know I'm a man. I just like dick.
hmm
So he knows what he is. He
hmm
just prefers men. So, and I appreciate his honesty. But you're right, trying to push it on, or when you're putting it in Sesame Street
hmm
and in the schools in textbooks,
Uh,
that's
yeah.
pushing
Right.
something.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
sorry.
Don't touch the kids below
Teach
18.
them reading, writing, arithmetic. And also, my ex Kim was saying that I didn't even realize this. They'd taken PE out of school, what, 5, 10 years ago?
Hmm.
Physical
hmm
uh, PE in a lot of schools. And
Hmm.
I think the focus should be on health and nutrition, right? What's wrong with that?
hmm
And the civics, the learning to love your country again,
hmm
not hate it.
Not hated. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, well, on that note, my dear, this has been quite fun,
Yeah.
and I kind of like our new setting.
Sure.
So we'll
Yeah.
see how this works, and
Yeah.
hopefully
If
we'll.
people can hang in there with us, or
I hope so. We'll see. We'll find
yeah,
out.
sort of it's a kind of a party free form atmosphere, you know.
Yeah, I'm in on it. I'm having fun, and we're not stuck to any rigid format or anything. But we will have some interesting topics next week. So tune in on Substack. Also, there will be a printed transcript for this, and we'll come up with something fun for next week. So until then, everybody stay safe, try to be happy, and live a good life.
Yeah. See you later.